Play Watch Listen is a mostly games industry podcast brought to you by game developers. It features video game writer Alana Pierce and video game composer Austin Wintory, and also usually Mike Bithell, who is a video game director, but he was not able to join us this week. The show is supported by Patreon, who got an extended cut of this episode and also got it several days early. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters for keeping this very independent, sponsor-free show alive. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Play Watch Listen. Alana Pierce here. I've been in Peru. It's beautiful. I highly recommend you go to Peru. You should check it out. I've been there for the last 2 weeks. By the time this goes up, it'll be a week later, but wow, what a beautiful place. No notes. But I have not been on the internet. Like, I spent 3 days in the Amazon jungle, literally the Amazon jungle, with no signal whatsoever, no power. We had candlelit bedrooms by night. So I don't know what the fuck's been going on. I'm also having blueprints withdrawals. My mom's here, and I just sat her down after we had breakfast and like explained blueprints to her, and showed her my insane notebook ramblings. But Austin said maybe we'll talk about blueprints today, and it's like I'm an addict. Like I'm actively upset that I have not played blueprints in 2 straight weeks. Some of my friends, the Patreon Discord supporters, in fact, we have like 2 separate chats on the Discord for blueprints, and one of them is like blueprints, and then one of them is blueprints late game. And I just saw that Peter, one of them, has put 600 hours into the game. So now I'm afraid to look in the blueprints late game chat on Patreon because I've only put in like 80 hours. He's on my friends. He's put in 600. Peter.
Wait.
How is there even still game left to play? You know what I mean? I didn't... 600 hours?
Are you monologuing?
I was monologuing about Blueprints, the video game,
So
which you
say it
mentioned
all
in the
over
chat.
again?
I don't need to say it all over again. I was basically like really excited to be here. I just got back from Peru, which is incredible, and the Amazon jungle and all this shit, and how I was having withdrawals from that game, and that you said that maybe we would talk about it today, and I'm here, and I'm ready. I'm ready to...
You actually canceled the rest of your trip in order to...
The minute that
talk
I got
about
that
Blueprint.
message, I was like, I'm back, baby. This is the first time
Yeah.
I've turned on my PC in like this month, and I'm here. I'm ready to talk about Blueprints, Austin. Tell me everything. How much have you played?
I put in... Did I hear you say 600? Did you say 600 hours?
Yes. So what I was saying was I've put in 3 days. I'm 72 hours. And that was,
Jesus.
to be clear, that was in 2 weeks. I played 3 full days of this game in 2 weeks. It actually ruined my life. I just didn't want to do anything else, and it was a problem because I had to go on this trip with my mom where I like knew that I wouldn't have access to internet all the time and everything, Amazon jungle and all this stuff, and I was trying to do all the work that I needed to before going, but I was like, all I was doing was work on Blueprints, and I was barely fucking sleeping. It was insane. The 600 hours...
You should have realized that the best way to reach you then would be to leave behind a series of elaborate clues and, cryptic messages.
That would have worked so well.
You would have engaged right immediately.
I think there's a term for this. Sorry, the 600 hours
Addiction.
Was... yes, but the 600 hours was in reference to... I have a Discord group of Patreon supporters, and we have a Blueprints chat and then a late game Blueprints chat. And I'm friends with one of them on Xbox, and I saw that his play count today was 600 hours. So
okay,
now,
that wasn't you.
Yeah, now I'm scared to go in the late game chat because I'm worried that they'll be like shit that I don't even know. But otherwise, I was saying I wish it would be such a fun game to play as a couple, because I'm in so many text threads and so many groups with so many people. I knew that Jason Schreier had gotten a lot further than most people because he had the game early and was covering it. So I'm in a group chat with a bunch of games industry people, and there was a period of time
writing an article about the House staff unionizing.
Probably, yeah. the crunch of the House staff.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I was in there, and I would be like, this is hard. Can somebody give me just a vague direction on figuring out where I need to go with this? And Jason's reply was just, it sounds like you need a new clue. And I was like, God, that's such a good way of telling somebody how to find something in this particular game. But yeah, I haven't touched it for 2 weeks, and I did today just to monologue also at my mother about why Blueprints is so great. It's a lot. Anyway, back to you, Austin. How much have you played?
I've played probably about a tenth as you. I think I've put in maybe approaching 7 hours, enough to play it, enough to thoroughly understand it and appreciate it, I would say. Actually, I feel like you can appreciate it within an hour. It's actually one of those that some games hold their cards close to the chest and you don't really get them until you're past a certain threshold. And I think that I'm of the mind these days that I have an increasingly small tolerance for what that window is.
Yeah,
you know, like, I think we've talked about it on here when people said, oh, you just got to get to 20 plus hours in Death Stranding and it really opens up. And I said, I'm sure, as someone who has appreciated many Kojima games in the past, I'm sure that if I can get to that threshold, I would agree with you. But that's just kind of an unreasonable ask for where I'm at in my life right now.
I agree. I'm like that with TV exceptionally. If I don't like 2 episodes, I'm not watching anymore. Like, I just won't do it. And
yeah,
I think you're right.
I think it's fair.
Some games I actually feel like a lot of games are really bad at onboarding. I do think it's like a very difficult thing to do, especially because so many players have different requirements for tutorials. And you're giving everyone the same blanket tutorial for like people who have vast, like I'm really bad at onboarding on a game that gives me a lot of menus and texts in the first 2 hours. Like I will just, and the text kind of won't mean anything. I did it a little bit with Expedition 33, which to be fair, does onboard you very quickly and very well because it's so interesting and the combat is immediately like very, very good. But I was like, I'm not going to retain any of this fucking information from this menu because it's just giving me all this stuff. But so many people learn in different ways that it's like actually quite difficult to cater the first few hours of a game to how to get somebody on board. And I think you're right in that Blueprints is, as long as you can make the connection that this is a puzzle game that doesn't tell you what the puzzles are, I think that as long as you register that you have to figure out what the puzzles are, then you're pretty much good to go. Like you'll figure it out and you'll run with it.
I think it does that. Actually, it's an interesting case study with Expedition 33, which I started today, finally.
I love it.
And so I've only played maybe an hour, basically the prologue. And then once I was clearly out of the prologue, I said, okay, that's a good stopping point. I got to get to work. But I think it also does a good job at the onboarding from the standpoint also of the sort of ludicrousness of the first few combat encounters. They're obviously there to tutorialize you, but I think as importantly, they are showing you the vibe, the temperament of the game, where it's like, okay, I'm a painter. Will you two duel for me to bring back my inspiration? And it's like, it's to ensure that you understand the dodging mechanic.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's something so sort of delightfully ludicrous about the way combat and narrative interact with each other in the classic JRPG format that I think that the game is just declaring itself of that ilk loudly by having that kind of combat where it goes into the full-on combat with the exaggerated movement and lighting and flashy effects and things, when it's theoretically, when you zoom out and try to imagine it in a grounded way, like if they made a TV adaptation, how would this scene be presented? And it's like, make these former lovers fight for me for the sake of my painting. It's also outrageous, but it's
tonally consistent though.
Outrageous.
Like yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, totally. But like
I'm saying all that praising.
Yeah. It's such a good way to do a tutorial. Like I mean, probably the best tutorial of all time is Far Cry Blood Dragon, right? Where like
I never played Blood Dragon.
Oh man, it's the tone of that game.
I heard nothing but good things, but I just, for whatever reason, never got around to it.
I think you probably still could, and it's 6 hours, and trust me, you'll get it immediately. The tutorial is effectively condescending. It'll be like, hold forward to walk 1 step. I'm not remembering this exactly correctly, but then it's like, hold forward to walk 2 steps. If you would like to continue walking forward, continue holding forward. And it's like
a love letter to gamers.
But it so over explains everything that you need to do, and that's part of the humor immediately. And it's like, I love when a tutorial does that and like gives you, something that is tonally consistent with the story of being told. And yeah, JRPG, a lot of the combat in JRPGs is really silly, but I feel like the fact that they did that, they tell you how the combat works quickly, you can pick it up pretty quickly, and that they're giving you the setting. It's like perfect. That's exactly what you want, right?
From the moment the game hit its 1.0 and everyone was talking about it for the last week or however long, the thing I see the most on Twitter and elsewhere is that the game is such an obvious love letter to that genre.
Yeah.
And basically playing it within 30 minutes, within 10 minutes, I thought, yep, I can see exactly why everyone's saying that, and I agree with that assessment. And by comparison, Blueprints I think is not hiding what it is. It's interesting how the roguelike aspect of it is just so obvious, so instantaneous, and so
Yeah.
instantaneously that it's to its credit. I feel like you're either immediately in it or you're not. It's one of those that if you bounce off what it's offering,
Yeah, you're probably never gonna like it. I think you're right. Yeah.
yeah, which is I think a huge design win.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't need to play for 10 hours
To know.
to decide.
Yeah.
You
I
know
think
what I mean?
I liked that kind of thing when I was younger and I didn't like I had more time and I could
Oh, for
and
sure.
I had less money as well. So like I would like the idea of a Death Stranding taking me 20 hours to get in because it would like I could only buy a certain amount of games a year. Whereas yeah, now I'm like so much shit to play, dude. And I have
Oh
so many
yeah.
things to do. and yet I'm still playing Blueprints until, I'll get to 100 hours on it. But 100% agree that it tells you immediately, hey, this is what this game is. I do
So
feel like I sometimes see people criticize it when they're early on and they're trying for some of the roguelike elements. And I don't, as someone who's like, again, I'm 72 hours, 75 hours, whatever, in. And maybe I'm still too early, which seems insane to say this, but I see people criticize the roguelike elements as being like it just gets to be RNG at some point. But I almost never feel that way because I'm always trying to solve 5 things at once. So I kind of like, if you talk about
mm,
the rooms and blueprints as cards, which is it's effectively you have a stack of cards, it's dealing you 3 at a time, you pick one. Sometimes you'll get a card that then they add 5 more cards to the deck, whatever. Um I feel like I'm always like, okay, these are the cards that I'm getting on this round, then I'll pursue this thing. But if there's one that's like more difficult in terms of RNG because I need a certain set of rooms, I'll do it if I start drawing the right things. But if I don't, there's always some other direction for me to go in. That's my experience consistently across the board. Like there are 2 rooms that I really need and have needed for fucking ages at this point. There's one where I need an item and a room together, and I got it once, and then the game crashed. So I've been waiting to
oh,
do that for ages. But at the same time, even if I get that item in that room in the same run, which again has only happened one time, I know where it'll take me, and the place it'll take me, I still haven't figured out yet. So it's like, yeah, I could be annoyed by that RNG, but I still need to solve the problem that I know is going to be the result of that thing anyway. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that correctly?
yeah, no, it's interesting. I feel like if I had to guess, that is probably the ideal way to play it from the developer's point of view. Because if you play a game like this where you go, I want to solve this one thing on this run, or until I solve
Yeah.
this one thing, every run I do is going to be fixated on that. Like how there's like the garden area off to the left before you go inside. If you go until I get in this room, everything else is a distraction until
Yeah.
I get past that gate. It's probably pretty frustrating because it's sort of luck of
Totally.
the draw how much progress you'll be able, if any, to make towards that goal.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can still appreciate that criticism despite despite that representing this a different and or arguably lesser strategy from the way you're playing it. I think the way you're playing it is intrinsically more challenging because you have to keep more in your head at any given time. You're sort of playing on a higher level, and the developer might go, "Well, that's the game we made."
I would
It's
guess
kind of
that
like
was the intention. Yeah.
it's sort of the John Blow, like you don't have to play it if you don't like what I'm offering. The sort of the nature of the design philosophy is what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it
'Cause,
makes
yeah,
it makes the offer to you, and like there's one example where I threw rooms away because I was looking for something in particular. For anyone who's not heard of Blueprints at all, it's an indie game. I think it took them about 10 years to make. Dogubomb is the name
Wow.
of the studio, I believe.
I was going to ask if you know anything about them. I never heard of them. I don't know anything about them.
uh very small studio, I believe, largely made by. I never want to say this because it's there's so many people going to making something, but largely one guy. um, who was a filmmaker in LA. And
Really?
yeah, it is inspired
Do you
by.
know them? Have you met this
I have
person?
not met this person. No, I don't know them. I'd love to talk to them about this goddamn
Yeah,
game.
no
Like the minute
shit.
this happened, I was like, because obviously the indie game that I'm working on, Layers Deep, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna figure out a way to put puzzles in Layers Deep. And I was like, holy shit, I get to do that because there's only 3 of us, and I just get to do that, and that rules. I was like, I'd love to ask him about it, but
That's
it's
that team is only 3?
Layers Deep is only 3 people. Yeah,
I did not realize
it's
that.
great, big difference from AAA.
Yeah, no
So it's
kidding.
based on the hardest puzzle in the world, the hardest puzzle ever made. A book that came out in. Google's not being helpful with me here, but so sorry if I say this incorrectly, but it basically is based on a book that came out in, I believe, 1985, where the whole book is like one of those choose your own adventure types where you like turn to certain pages to unlock certain things. But the book is a house. So each page is a different room. And the guy who made it presented the world with a challenge where if you could figure out how to get to page 16 or like the middle of the book and back in only 16 steps, and you could present him proof that you had figured out how to do that, then you would win $10,000. And the competition ran for a year and nobody did it. So the people who got the closest, they split the $10,000 between. And now I am definitely going to buy this book also because I love this stuff. But it's based on that, so it's not an adaptation. It's just inspired by, is what I should say rather.
Right,
And
right.
so it's basically the same idea, right? It's like you're just drawing rooms and each of them has a puzzle, and sometimes you get a new room and you get a bunch more information, but it is a roguelike, so you draw them randomly. Like I said, if you talk about rooms like cards, it makes a bit more sense. And so much of it is just seeing you have one objective to start with, and you're like, cool, let me think about that objective. And then, as I kept playing and I realized this game's so fucking big. Like, you just keep being like, oh my god, there's, holy shit, there are 10 more puzzles that I didn't even know about, and some that are really easily missed. And there's like, you'll basically just find little breadcrumbs of information that you might initially dismiss that you will then realize because you find some other piece that relates to that piece, you'll figure out how to put things together. I could not recommend trying it more highly. I think it's still on Game Pass, and it's, I believe, free on PlayStation for another couple of months, I think. Don't Google anything. Don't. It's you
You
could
said the
finish this
same in
game.
our private messages. You were like,
Yeah.
read nothing about it, and that I took that to heart, and I can fully endorse.
You could figure out half of this game just by Googling a walkthrough. But then we wouldn't be playing it. It would be pointless. It would be functionally pointless. Like, the reward is in. It's kind of an obsession simulator. It makes it like it. I don't even know how to articulate the way that this game does this. It's just the way that it lays out crumbs and the way that it pays off those crumbs is so rewarding to my brain, and I presume the brains of everybody else who's equally obsessed with this game. Like we're saying, it's like you'll either kind of be obsessed with it or it just won't grab you, and it's fine either way, obviously. Is similar to me. The only same feeling I have is if I am like on a roll with writing something, because I feel like it is a similar puzzle. If I am figuring out writing, it's very hard for me to pull away from it. I just want to do it, and I won't sleep, and then the scene is done and it gets submitted or whatever, then I'm like, oh my god, I'm on this puzzle. And Blueprints is the only video game that's ever given me that same feeling in terms of like creative satisfaction, where I have a notebook that's like 30 pages and I'm just constantly thinking about it when I'm not doing it. Like, it was definitely like that working on AAA at all times. Like, even when I'm doing nothing else, I'm thinking about the game that I'm working on or whatever. And this is the only thing that I've found to emulate that experience of like creative obsession. And I don't even really know how. I think it's the way that the breadcrumbs and the rewards are laid out. It's just so much creative problem solving.
It also has just enough of a resource management aspect with the room steps counter that there's sort of just a mild amount of tension with every run.
True.
It's I feel like that's an crucial part of it for that kind of obsession simulator because you never fully can just relax.
True.
But it's not stressful. Like I've never actually once run out of steps in a run. I've at some point just I just realized I don't think there's anything else I can do. I've played all my cards and I'm all dead end. So there's nothing else to change. Yeah, exactly. But it's that lurking threat. There's a couple times where it came close. But so wait, I'm curious because I just looked it up on howlongtobeat.com, the single most useful website that has ever been made.
One of the best.
And
one of the goats.
It really is. The completionist number, which I've never once in my life, according to Steam, the only game I've platinumed, which I think I must have by accident, weirdly, because I have no memory of platinuming this game, I must just platinum by virtue of beating it, was Tales from the Borderlands. Is weirdly the one and only game. I'm like, I played it once.
I was so curious about what you were going to say. That's interesting. Maybe it's an easy one. Like, you just have to finish it.
That's why I think you literally just finish it and you're good. Because my most played games by far are like the various iterations of Mass Effect, unsurprisingly, and then of course XCOM 2. I have like 10 trillion hours.
You haven't platinumed XCOM 2?
Apparently not. I don't even know. I never even look into that. I've never been that guy.
I'm not that guy either.
I was always resistant to that sort of, like, I remember on Journey we had to that game company was required to put achievements in the game because originally it felt like, isn't that really antithetical to sort of what Journey is? But then they thought of a bunch of like clever ones that lean into it, like meditating for 1 minute and not playing, like not doing anything, and they did a good job. And I will say, when we did the live show, we have these like special white boxed sort of dev accounts that we play on a dev kit with when we do the show, and when we reset it each time, and you get an achievement for the first time you connect with someone, and so it's usually kind of a funny moment in the show where the little thing pops up, and the whole audience has cheered on multiple occasions when that's happened, which is actually pretty funny.
I'm sure I've asked you this before. Are you multiplayering with real people still every time?
Strangers.
Every time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I probably it's happened that we didn't connect, but usually we connect with multiple people.
Wow.
And the best part is that they don't know that they're being watched by a theater.
It's not performative. That's really cool.
I'm pretty sure that the name of our PSN account is like Journey Live. Like, we made one for that, and we're playing on a special dev kit that Sony has to like whitelist manually before each show so that we can go online.
Yeah.
And you would think that not once that I remember has someone like then tweeted at us like, holy shit, that was you guys. Like, it's usually, I think, someone just off in the world that they look at Journey Live and they just think, what a weird like hardcore fan or something.
That's really cool.
You would think that at least once it would have been someone that would have thought to follow up or go like looking online, because we usually tweet, hey, if anybody wants to jump in, we'll be playing at 7:00 tonight. Anyway, I don't mean to hijack the discussion. So 82 hours is what the completionist average apparently is, according to How Long to Beat.
That's so for all the achievements?
It just says completionist, which usually isn't that what that means?
I mean,
admittedly, it says only 11 people have submitted that yet, but
I guess
still,
I'm not trying to do that. So
that's what I was going to ask. What are you even doing, and what the hell did the 600-hour person do?
I could ask him.
I mean, is that just replaying it over and over? Like, just
no.
Like, I know there's a lot of sort of new game plus, so to speak. I don't know the right term in this.
So the first objective that this game gives you is find room 46.
Right.
There are 44 rooms, 45 rooms. You have to find the 46th room. Have you done that?
No, I at some point it was clear. I got quite close to the antechamber on multiple runs, and then just came shy of it. And then at some point I was like, I can see this has a very Inscription feeling quality where you sort of get to the thing, it's dangling in front of you, and it's very obvious that that's far from the end.
Yes.
And I felt satisfied even just knowing that before I was like, I need to play Expedition 33 now lest I fall behind forever, because I
dude.
Yeah.
Same. Exact same 2 games that I'm playing Doom this weekend, and oh my god, so many good games.
that's queued up next as well.
But neither of them is that long. So I've said this publicly before, and I really am not being elitist when I say this. I am like helping. I say from my perspective.
That doesn't sound elitist at all.
I'm just
this isn't me being
helping,
elitist.
okay?
I'm just helping you poor
because you need help clearly.
Yeah.
I've seen people like talk about finishing
the air up there.
I've seen people talk about finishing Blueprints and then being like, it was kind of a bummer that there wasn't anything else to do. And so the answer is, when you roll credits on this game, you've not finished this game. You finished the tutorial. And again, that's not me being like, you basically just finished the tutorial. That's me being like, you finished the tutorial. And that's fine if you want to just like end there. The game will let you do that. But basically, once you've done that the one time, the whole of the game opens up, you know?
So here's the question then. Because one of the things that I love about games is the opt-in nature of this sort of thing. For example, I played Her Story. I did not find every last fragment that you can. I did not sort of platinum, or whatever you would label it in that case, Her Story. I played for 2 hours, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Was totally convinced I knew what was going on. Loved it. Went on YouTube, watched a video of someone who had scoured everything. Realized they objectively proved that I was wrong. And I loved it even more.
Yeah.
And I realized this is something that fundamentally games can do that no other medium can do, where I kind of played to my satisfaction and was satisfied.
You could totally do that.
And I loved that game in particular was so satisfying, even in my wrongness. And so I was starting to feel the same about Blueprints, where I said, I kind of feel like I've gotten at 7 hours, if that, what I'm probably gonna. Don't get me wrong. I am open to being thoroughly corrected by someone who has spent more than 10x the amount of time I have. But I found myself, I would thoroughly recommend this game to anybody that is into this kind of game. Just on that, even if I wasn't feeling the drive to keep going. And it's the same thing with Her Story, where I found myself going, I feel like I can clock what this is. And here's my question.
Yeah. I have a 2-part answer, I think, to the question I'm predicting. First is...
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead. Just presume the question.
Know, sorry. Yeah. First is, this is an important note. To the people that... To when I say you've only finished the tutorial, I'm only saying that to the people who are saying, I got to room 46 and then I was disappointed that there wasn't more. If you want to finish there, that's so totally fine, obviously. The thing that you have to do, if you are one of those people, is go back to that room a second time. So it's like, if you're disappointed because you're like, I don't really know what to do now, and you're bummed out about that, go back again. Second game opens up. Second part to the question I've assumed that you were going to ask. I think that you are right, that within 7 hours, you've figured out what this game is going to have you be doing for as many hours as you're doing it. It's just that there's a lot more of it than you realize. It's the depth of the game is the rabbit hole just keeps going and going and going. It's so much bigger than you think it is, but it's the functions of what you're doing, which is like recognizing clues, looking for notes, figuring out where to apply them, figuring out combinations of things, that you've got an idea of by even getting to room 46 or even getting close. Like, you understand what you're doing in the game. It's just that it goes so far.
That's where I was. Yeah, if you have fallen in love with the mechanics and the aesthetics, then that will be essentially a bottomless well of joy. And
and it is impressive in how deep it gets. I will say that. Like, while again the function is effectively the same the whole way through, every time it opens up a new sort of layer, I'm always like, holy fuck, I can't believe this is still like this. Like, the game is shocking in the depth of its surprises.
Would you say that this is a fair statement to make? It has that in common with Inscryption, but where Inscription might arguably come out ahead is that by constantly wildly flipping the basics of the world, Inscription almost reinvents what game it is every so often, including wild changes to the aesthetic and all kinds of things that it sort of, I think it's like the return on investment with sticking with it is higher unless you just are obsessed. It's like if your favorite thing ever is matzo ball soup, 10 million variations that are still very similar to that will always make you happy. Whereas if you're like, no, I'm really craving a pizza at this point.
It's a very good question. Okay, so Inscription's like one of my favorite games ever. Blueprints is too now, right? Yeah, thank you so much for recommending that I play it, Austin. I really appreciate that. So,
I'm here to serve, as always.
I still get comments about that. I don't even know what episode that joke happened on, but I will still get comments all the time of people being like, man, I'm so glad Austin told me to play Inscription regularly. Inscription, that was the core of the video you did about like lies about you on the internet. Is that the one that bothers you the most? Yes, number one is actually that Austin takes credit for recommending Inscription to people when I was the one who recommended it to him. Thank you so much for the apologies. I'm sick of it. Inscription.
No apology offered.
Just work the podcast back. Anyway, Inscription's most addictive version to me is Casey's mod. Have you played Casey's mod?
No.
Okay,
I have heard that though.
It's basically game one. Inscription unfolds and gives you different versions of the thing. The common criticism of Inscription that I agree with, though perhaps I don't give it as much weight as other people might, is that the first version is the strongest and the other two are a little weaker.
Mm-hmm.
So Casey's mod is game one, is act one, forever.
Right.
But then with several challenges, and I think like I finished Inscription in maybe 2 sittings because I just found it so addictive. Casey's mod, similar to Blueprints, ruined my fucing life. And then it was like when I was playing Casey's mod, until I got all of those achievements, I did not want to do anything else with my life at all, ever. Should get very addicted to games like this. Mm-hmm. Blueprints, comparatively, it's not giving you the same game with a different twist in the way that Inscription is, again, that I credit Inscription for. It rules. It is more akin to what Tunic does, which is that it is basically saying, hey, remember this thing that you passed that you didn't know what it meant 50 hours ago? Here's the whole world that thing opens up. So it's like just the satisfaction is not in giving you the same incredibly good video game like Inscription does with different like patterns of growth and different appearances. It's more that it's rewarding you for observing things you observed 10 hours ago. Like, the aesthetic does not change. It's the appeal is in the surprises of how something that may have appeared very mundane actually ends up being something much bigger than that. So the satisfaction comes from a different place, and thus it's difficult to compare to Inscription.
Right.
Because it's less focused on that sense of discovery. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it feels, in a way, it's like the next evolution of a game more like Myst.
Absolutely. It's Myst.
Where, you just bathe in it, and it's meant to be, Myst was that era where you had to step away, and then a week later you'd be, standing in line at a movie or something, and then just go, oh my God, it just occurred to me what I need to do. Or you like wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I lived for those moments, especially the LucasArts and Sierra point and click adventures were full of those moments for me growing up.
That time. I love the LucasArts point and click adventure games, but I feel like a lot of the LucasArts games were so obscure that sometimes it was a matter of trial and error rather than of logical thought. Like, I had experiences with, like, Grim Fandango where I fucking love that game, but I was like, how would I have ever figured that out?
Oh, without a doubt. There's certain puzzles that, in hindsight, and as the industry has matured, you go, that was a bit of a brutal...
How would you put those pieces together?
Yeah.
Whereas Blueprints, everything is solvable. I will say there's only one room that has puzzles that I needed help with that I don't think I would have figured out without people giving me hints that I just would not have figured out because they were so fucking obscure and I guess just not the way my brain works. Everything else is solvable. Like you might think that you've hit a wall, you just haven't found something, or like you just need to like go back to something and reread something or something like that.
This is where I think I am of a. It's interesting how I am of a two contradictory. I have arrived at two contradictory places in my life, because on the one hand, the sort of reference to growing up playing the point and click adventure games aside, the cliche of, okay, I've played the Call of Duties, I've played the Medal of Honors and the Dooms and the Uncharted's and blah blah blah, and now I'm looking for something a little bit more, you know, as someone in their 40s, something that's a little more where I'm at in life. It's less about stimulus and a little bit more introspective and
I
thoughtful
think I've
and blah
gotten
blah
there
blah.
too. Like I'm less, I gravitate to action games less than ever before.
Yeah, like there's that argument that you know, you just kind of, one of the beauty of being a gamer in 2025 is that more than ever, as you kind of reach new chapters in your life and you're looking for something else, you can find it in abundance. There's a whole subgenre there, you know, and so on the one hand, that very much describes me. I mean, I felt that that's where Journey was the beginning of that. You know,
Yeah.
I remember when Genova first described, and I was in my mid 20s, but I remember Genova describing the pitch and thinking, having played games since as long as I can remember. So at age 25, I was a 20-year gamer at that point, give or take. It felt like this is now closer to what I'm looking for
Yeah.
than just, you know, action, adventure, shooters,
I
strategy
won't
games,
make
that kind of thing.
the regular, probably controversial contest that I make that I think Doom is a puzzle game. But
Well,
otherwise, go ahead.
so this is where I go, in a way, a game like Blueprints is perfectly exactly what I'm looking for at this stage of my life. But the contradictory aspect is that there's also part of me that's going, I ain't got time for this shit. That's where I so admire, I deeply admire, especially as someone in the industry. That's why I immediately wanted to know about this developer, because I thought, God, do I admire someone making a game like this who just doesn't give a fuck, and they want to make the game that they want to make, and
Yeah.
and it rewards you for being someone who wants to put 70 or 600 hours in. They go, we actually can make something like that. Like I remember when I was in London with Darren and we were recording for Hades 2, and Greg Cassavan from Supergiant was there with us, and you know, we had a lot of meals together for that week.
Brag
And,
about it. Yeah, you ate. We
oh,
get it.
yeah, no, for sure.
Eats meals
Uh,
internationally.
the flex is hanging with Greg Cassavan and just getting some of that genius Supergiant fairy dust.
Yeah,
I was
incredible.
like breathing it, you know, like the spores in The Last of Us. And he was saying how there are players, like they have data. There are players that have done like thousands of runs, and that they put things in the game for those people. Like
That's
he
cool.
goes, he said, I hope I shouldn't. I don't know if I should say, because I don't even know if this is the kind of thing they would want out there. But basically, there are breadcrumbs in the game that will acknowledge that level of play. Like obviously, at some point, you're just in it for the mechanics of it and
Yeah,
for
you're
trying to
enjoying
sort of
playing it.
perfect it.
Yeah.
But they recognize that is possible. And even though obviously the amount of new content will have fallen off dramatically by that point, there actually is new content. Baldur's Gate, another one of those where I admire, or Divinity Original Sin 2, where Larian goes, 900-hour player, we see you, we've got you. Like, that's where I so admire that, even though I'm increasingly okay with not being that player. And when I clocked Blueprints as a game that rewards that, I thought, you know, I think I'm probably satisfied, not even at 10 hours, not even making it technically through one run. Because again, I fully acknowledge I'm contradicting myself, but I sort of have there's just too many games and books and movies and
I don't think that's a contradiction. Like, I think you can appreciate something without wanting to do it yourself. And the distinction for me is like, Again, I started playing Blueprints 2 weeks before going on a 2 week holiday where I knew I would not have access to internet, often didn't have power, often had no signal whatsoever. Literally in the middle of the Amazon jungle. I wish that I did not have the compulsion to play Blueprints that I had. Like, by choice, I would have played 10 hours and then stopped. I didn't have that in me. Like, I just,
Right.
like, especially because I'm playing it on my ROG Ally. So it's just always there available to be picked. It's so fucking addictive to me. It's just the kind of game that like I just was like, and I want to do nothing else. So I basically didn't sleep, like I said, for the weeks that I was playing this so that I could get work done and play this game and prepare to go on 2 week vacation in Peru. It broke me. So like I think that my playtime is not necessarily in honor of the admiration for it. And I think that the thing that you're touching on there is good game direction, right? Like that is, which it is a lot easier to do in the indie space in a lot of ways. Like they have more restrictions, obviously, for a lot of budget reasons, but they like really went, hey, here's what this game is. I'm going to give you this game. Everything that you see feeds into the purpose of this game. I think that that is significantly easier to do on a smaller scale when you don't have 600 cooks in the kitchen trying to make something collectively. And it drives the point home. And if you don't like that thing, that's cool, get out. But you don't really have like the privilege of doing that in some ways when you have a AAA publisher as well, right?
Oh, you
It could
can
be a lot
definitely
harder to do.
afford to be way riskier.
Totally, and more direct.
With game direction. Yeah, absolutely.
Like really making something that is like, this is the thing that we're going to make. I even think Expedition 33 has done an incredible job with direction. They are, I believe, published by Xbox, but still quite a small team in the grand scheme of things. I think it's 30 people. That's not including outsourcing, which is obviously a huge part of game development at this point. But
it's definitely
similar.
a double A game, which I think shares that advantage.
Yeah.
You know, like you're able to swing harder, but you're still able to be low risk enough that
Yeah.
you can do
It's
crazy
just
shit.
when you have a game director and you have a team of 30 people or a team of 3 people, it's a lot easier to communicate the core pillars of the game to those people. And if any one of them is confused, they have the time to go ask the game director. When you work
Right.
at a AAA studio, you can't do that. They can give you a presentation, but there are so many departments working on such vastly different things that it's very difficult to distill, here's the most important point of this game. And I think the way that Santa Monica Studio does that, because I think that they make very well directed video games, is like, it's some principles that I definitely took into working on Layers Deep was Corey specifically, obviously Ragnarok directed by Eric Williams, God of War 2018 directed by Corey Barlow, had a design thing for 2018 that was like, here are the 3 pillars of the game. And all departments should be working towards these 3 pillars at all times. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say what they are, but it's basically like a specific tone for combat and a specific tone for story and a specific tone about this thing. And everything that you put in the game should be like reflective of these things. And that's the easiest way to distill it. So you can at least like break them up into pieces for the departments to try to communicate that quite well. Which, yeah, we did on Layers Deep immediately. I was like, what are our pillars and how do these things like directly correlate to these particular things? When you have a game like Blueprints, which is a puzzle game, it's kind of like one core pillar that they're just driving towards at all times, which I would imagine in that game is discovery. Like the satisfaction that comes from you discovering things and putting things together. It's breadcrumbs discovery. Like it is entirely in the whole game is an investigation, I guess. And if you have that one pillar that you're constantly driving towards, it's like that's so rich in that. So I think that you appreciating it is not devalued by the fact that you aren't finishing it. You're getting the point and still going, this is way too much time, which it is. It's a really fucking long game. Again, I wish that I had the willpower to be like, I will stop playing this. Like, I'm sure I've told you before, I can't play MMOs. I have to not play. I just get too addicted. I can't do it.
No, absolutely. I in high school was the peak of EverQuest, and I was like, this is going to start to interfere. Like I would alter my school schedule to have the last class off, come home early, and just have that much more time. How I managed
Neverwinter
to somehow...
and Guild Wars 2, like fucking ruined my life. Same thing. It was when I was in college, like the exact same thing. And it's like now I just go, oh, an MMO. Can't do it because
I love reading about EVE Online because I know that if I crack that seal, it's done.
That's your life ruined. Yeah. Whereas at least Blueprints, I guess the mysteries that I'm currently trying to solve, there is a small amount of them left, and then there are achievements, which I think that I will probably go for, but it's not endless content. Like,
Right.
I assume it's not endless content.
I mean,
like
it's
an
only
MMO
600
is.
hours worth.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, the whole rest
modest.
of my life. So it feels more tolerable, but like, yeah, it was tough to go back after 2 weeks. And I was like, am I going to forget everything? Am I going to have a tough time picking it up again? But because I have such extensive notes, it's actually totally fine. Like, I just like my notebook is so. There's this one thing that I don't even know what it means that I was just trying to explain to my mum, who I'm sure doesn't give a shit, but was politely nodding
I was
while
gonna
I
ask.
ranted
Yeah, I
her
was
about
gonna
this
say,
game.
what
She was like,
I'm
cool, yeah,
sure
that's
she
really-
has
that's cool.
a couple decades of experience of
It's
you
true of me
demonstrating
ranting at
this
her
behavior.
about video games. Yeah, 100%. She's used to it. But I found a note somewhere that said someone's name was a pseudonym, and then I found a reference to that name having done something, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with those two threads. Like, I know that this person in this game did something, and I know that that name is a pseudonym. I don't know what the fuck that means or what I'm supposed to do with that information, but it's like, well, it's in my notebook, so I'll figure it out eventually, I guess.
What I love, though, and this is what I mean when I say I very quickly appreciated the game, even if I've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Is that it became very clear from even a tiny amount of playing that identifying that suit, like your example, seeing a pseudonym and then seeing it pop up somewhere else, knowing that there is something there.
Always.
This reminds me, I have a friend, this guy named Mike Selinker, who is he's a game designer and like a puzzle master. He principally works in tabletop type places. He has worked in a bunch of spots, but his crowd, as I always love to say, his friends are like the people that write the New York Times crossword puzzle and stuff. Like he runs in the crowd of people that would
cool puzzle guys.
Yeah, and then who
That's
would
sick.
eat up a game like this. In fact, I should text him to make sure he's played it. He probably, knowing him and his reputation, if
He probably
he's-
like consulted on it at some point.
I was gonna
or something.
say, yeah, they probably like got his feedback in when they were developing it or something. Just knowing the circles he runs in and whatnot. He's one of those that when you hang out with him, you just quickly realize his brain works in a different way than most people's. It is just operating on this level. Like I one time asked him, I said, one person ever has won 3 Oscars in one night. Can you guess who it is? And knowing nothing and not even being like the world's biggest expert on that stuff, he got shockingly close just by kind of logically working through it. And
Deduction.
yeah, it's just one of those where he's really, really good. And he and I, we met because he did a project in the early days, 10-ish years ago, 2012, when Kickstarter, thanks to Double Fine, kind of had its heyday. It was, obviously, we talked about it with the Banner Saga, that it launched in the midst of that. He made a thing where he had written a puzzle book, and I thought of it when you mentioned that Choose Your Own Adventure
Yeah.
book
real name
a
of it.
minute ago. Mike had written a book in the 90s. I think probably in the amidst the Choose Your Own Adventure craze, like when that was at its peak popularity, which I'm assuming was like the early 90s. He wrote a book that was like the most hardcore version of that imaginable. He called it a Solve Your Own Adventure. It was a book that was
Solve Your Own Adventure is a really good name. That's like the subgenre of what this is.
Yeah, he absolutely, his thing was called The Maze of Games, and it was a puzzle of a like 2 kids that were trapped in a kind of Theseus maze type situation, and you had to actually solve the puzzles in the book to be able to read the novel. Like everything was all coded and scrambled and in the wrong order, and so you had to solve it. And the story, it's one of those where the mechanics of it, it's called The Maze of Games.
The Maze of
And
Games.
the author's name is Mike Selinker, and you can find his Kickstarter.
Games. Wow, cool.
And so in fact, I can pull my my Bithel in his absence.
Full-length
You
puzzle
may-
novel with over 50 puzzles and deeply engaging story, all woven together with Solve Your Own Adventure style. That's so cool.
Yeah, what I love is that the
Whoa!
Maze of Games, in perfect Mike Selinker fashion, Maze of Games, somehow, Maze of Games.
Whoa! That's cool.
and, So yeah, this is it's really fucking cool, and they did
Have you done it?
Oh, it's so beyond mine's.
It's really hard. Oh, fancy.
Oh, it's so beyond. So what happened was I thought this shit was so cool.
I would guess that
And
this is inspired by the book I was talking about, which is called Maze: Solve the World's Most Challenging Puzzle, the one from 1985. I'm sorry, it was written and illustrated by Christopher Manson. The book was originally published as part of a contest to win $10,000. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
it wouldn't surprise me at all. In
Yeah.
fact, that guy's probably friends with Mike. I wouldn't it wouldn't shock me at all. I don't know. He may have mentioned it and I've just forgotten. In any case, to your point, not to spin us off too far, but so I backed the Kickstarter. I just thought it was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know Mike. I had never heard of him. This was just one of those Kickstarters that was blowing up because he wanted like 10 grand to self-publish because
Right.
he had in the 90s. He had come up with this thing and they said that's too fringe. The publishing industry was sort of like, nah, that's way too hardcore. So he sat on it for all these years, and then when Kickstarter became a thing, he said, oh shit, I can self-publish it. He asked for like 10K or 15K or something like that and raised, I don't even remember, like 150 or something
He asked
crazy.
for 16,000 and made 171.
Yeah, exactly. And all the stretch goals were like getting all of his cool, like he called it the Conundrocopia or something like that,
Let me pull it up.
of bunch of guest puzzle designer
Oh,
types
that's cool.
to contribute, and the thing blew up in scope. And so I backed it, and then we start exchanging messages, and he was like, dude, I'm very familiar with your work, and what if we collaborated on this? And so he came to LA and we sat and had a coffee and dreamt up of a way to, I said, what if we, basically the result of our brainstorming, and he deserves most of the credit for this because again, the guy's brain works on another level, but I said, what if I release an album called The Maze of Games so that you can find it on Spotify and stuff? And it's a series of songs in different languages. And I said, there are puzzles in this book that you cannot solve unless you find the album and solve the puzzles intrinsic to the album, which
Oh my
we do
God,
not.
that's so cool.
We don't even advertise that there are puzzles embedded in the music. So
Holy
it's up
shit.
to you. It's up to the type of person who would play a game like Blueprints and just become obsessed with it
Yeah.
to even discover there's a puzzle there and then solve it. And I remember saying to Mike, do you think anyone's ever going to do that? And he goes, the kind of people that follow me, give it a week. And sure enough, it was like 9 days later, someone tags me on Reddit or somewhere and goes, is it this? And I'm like, fucking hell, I can't believe it. Because again, we don't even
I would love
say,
to talk to him. I do want to put stuff like that in Latest Deep and this room too. I've been thinking about it because it's like
I'll happily connect.
I would
you.
need to ask so many questions, but from what I've been workshopping, I told the team, I was like, this is such a fucking game director thing to do. Technically, the three of us are game directors just of different departments, right? But it's such like a game director thing to do is be like, so I've been playing this cool thing. We should put it in the game, but because it's indie and there's three of us, no one can tell me no. But thankfully, they were all like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Watch the GDC postmortem from the guys that made Into the Breach and FTL. Their Into the Breach postmortem is great, and one of the first things that they say in there is that they're very guilty of that. That
Yeah.
every shiny object that they encounter, they go, "We should do that."
It's hard not to.
And they have to like constantly step back and have the discipline to sort of whittle it down to the things that are really working best for their
Yeah.
game. But they also credit it, if I remember correctly, they do credit it as like what makes Into the Breach so cool and unique, which it very much is.
I haven't played Into the Breach, but I've played plenty of FTL.
They're very different games. Into the
Yeah.
Breach is a strategy game where you always know in advance what the enemy is going to do. It tells you what their next move is, and the strategy is emergent in knowing that, and it's so cool. It's so unlike other strategy games.
That's very like
And-
chess-like, except that with chess you have to guess what someone's going to do or try and set them up to do that thing, right? I've been playing more chess lately too.
But it has in common that chess has obviously there's a very definitive finite number of possible
Yeah.
next
Unless
moves.
you're an idiot, and then you will do something.
I mean, even then, theoretically, it can be. I mean, it's
Sure,
like
it's still
computers-
finite. Yeah. But
computers
there's
have
only a
essentially
few
solved chess, you
logical
know?
things really that someone can do. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah,
cool.
exactly. In any case, Mike, I remember him saying that high level puzzles, and I think Blueprints probably does this a lot. He goes, the really high level puzzle designers, he goes, there's always layers to it where you create a puzzle that's easily solved, that's meant to make the low level people go, cool, I did it. but it's actually not the real thing. The real thing is hiding in plain sight. Behind that, I guess that means not in plain sight, but the real puzzle is the one that is easy to look past because you've solved the easy one.
Yeah, okay.
And that
even that's helpful. Because my whole
Yeah,
thought
like-
was like, I'm sure I'll do like a chat with the latest Deep team when we get further into things. Things are still very early going through publishing stuff right now, and I'm largely hands off at this point. Like, I've told them what I need for the narrative, but it's not at the point where anything. I've got documents, but it's not at the point where I'm needing to do a ton. It's really all them. But I was like, well, it seems really easy to just come up with a solution and then breadcrumb an answer. But that I'm not approaching that with any experience of being like, okay, well, I can put I can put something in an area that I've breadcrumbed notes to, and it can be simple and spaced out, and the puzzle is in finding them all. But it just seems too easy to just do that. And I think even that alone is a good point of like, if you give people an easy one, Tunic, again, I think does a really good job of like, you don't realize what the puzzle is, even though it was in front of you the whole time. And it's probably, if you can get people off the trail by giving them an easy puzzle to think that that's the one they should be consumed by, that alone is helpful. It's like, I definitely think I want to talk to people about it just to figure this out because it's so fun.
Yeah. And this guy Mike is truly brilliant in that regard. I wanted to add one other thing, by the way. I share your predisposition to outrageous levels of addiction, and the game. I think
I finished Myst in one sitting, like Inscription and Myth.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Dude. I just didn't stop. Like
it was like a 40-hour.
Oh no! You can finish Myst pretty fast. Like I rolled credits.
I haven't played it since I was a kid, so
12
in my
hours,
memory,
maybe?
it's a. That's still.
I finished Inscription in 2 sittings. Yeah, I mean, it's just games like that where it's a puzzle game like that. I can't, and that's why Blueprints, because it's so much longer than Myst, is just ruining my life. But I didn't know that when I started, did I? I thought I'd have a nice little The Witness experience, and I'd be done. And here I fucking am.
Yeah, I think the games that these days can do that to me are the very systemic. It's less about puzzles and more about playing and mastering systems. For example,
like XCOM, right?
Yeah, well, XCOM definitely. But I would say the most recent one that consumed me, I just looked it up to see. I just shy of 140 hours, and to be clear, that was in like probably a 3-week period. Like, it was not a good period, but it was amazing at the same time because
partners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was Satisfactory. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That game, and it's like, and I think about it, I find myself going, I want to start again. And I go online, I look at these builds.
Did you ever have a Minecraft phase?
No, same thing. I knew not
Minecraft
to.
Too. Yeah.
I knew to avoid Minecraft because it was at a period in my life where I just was like, no, absolutely not. And then I made the mistake of not realizing that Satisfactory. I just didn't realize to the extent it would scratch that itch. So I probably would have avoided it if I'd known.
Yeah.
A friend recommended it, and I didn't know about it. I had, and it had only just ended its early access, but somehow it had been completely off my radar. Did you know that it's like one of the top 10 most successful games ever, or like top 20 or something?
Didn't it technically only come out last year?
Yeah, but
I
it
have
was
not
also
played
in early
Satisfactory,
access
but fully think that I would end up on the same boat as you with that one. Like, I've seen
It's
YouTube
got
videos. I'm aware of that game,
numbers.
but I haven't played it.
I think it's 30 million units or something. Like, it's.
I think kids love it.
Dude, every smart person loves it. I will join you up in the cloud.
And kids.
Yeah,
everyone who has big IQ really likes Satisfactory.
Exactly. No, but for real, it is. Yeah, I mean, almost 200,000 Steam reviews with a 97%. I mean, like, that's bananas. That's like fucking super giant level, just or Larian hysteria.
Yeah.
And it somehow flew under the radar in contrast to those games, though. Like, you would think it would be the most talked about game ever with those kinds of numbers. And
is it not
I know it is
similar to
talked
Roblox,
about, but
where it's like it's this fucking juggernaut that just like doesn't get fronted?
I mean, I just assume that the difference is that
why not?
Roblox is so kid oriented, and I wouldn't have thought this is. Maybe it is. Maybe this is like deeply in the pocket of that Minecraft, Roblox,
Because again, like it's not
young teenager
like
kind of.
kids love Minecraft, but that's not to say that Minecraft is a kid's game. Like you can play Minecraft in an extremely
For
smart
sure.
way, right? Like I think that Satisfactory
But I think
might do the
kids
same thing, where it's like a lot of kids
could
play
be.
it, but it doesn't mean it's a kid's game. And the only reason I say that, for the record, is that the person who showed me Satisfactory for the first time was a teenager, and he was like, "Have you played
He's
Satisfactory?"
obviously a super
Yeah,
fucking
Satisfactory.
genius.
Well, he's Mike Flanagan's son. So maybe. He was like, "Just look at these YouTube videos of Satisfactory, oh my god." And then he was making me watch Satisfactory YouTube videos for an hour. And the game's fucking cool. Like,
I mean, I always
Totally get
enjoy those Factorio type. Like, I played the fuck out of Dyson Sphere Program and a bunch of those others of that genre. But by making that genre a first-person game where you
Yeah.
can actually get killed by shit in the
Yeah.
environment, was like a sufficiently huge twist on it. And also, hey, good question.
because, like,
It
the
doesn't
thing with-
feel it. It feels like a game that a small team made where they came up with absolutely genius tools that let them make something way above their weight class. But I could be wrong.
The thing with a game like Satisfactory, I'm so sure this will sound reductive to the people who made it, is that from my limited history in game dev, how long am I doing this for now? Like really 5
7
years
minutes.
full time-ish, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, right? Is that
That's half of a game made by Ken Levine.
that's true. I've half of one Ken Levine game's length of time that I've been basically making video games as my sole majority
Or
of my
half of Blueprints by the sound of it.
yeah. A half of
Play
Blueprints.
Dead.
It seems like the genius in a Satisfactory, even in a Minecraft, is coming up with the system. I don't
for
think
sure.
the implementation of the system that allows you to have fun playing it is that complicated, because the implementation and the reward is really in your own creativity, right? Same as Minecraft. But it's just the coming up with it in the first place rather than the creating the game part that facilitates it, I would think. So Satisfactory, probably a pretty small team. Feels the same way to me. Let's see though.
It's elegantly simple for sure. In
Yeah.
a way that not everyone has the ability to just do that, to just think of that. I completely agree. I would liken it to if you watch the Leonard Bernstein omnibus episode about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, where he talks about the first four notes, some of the most famous notes in all of music history, and it's first off, three of the notes are the same note. Bum 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 bum. He goes, theoretically, anyone could have come up with that.
Monkey's on a typewriter.
But Beethoven was the one who did, and that's why we talk about Beethoven. And it's
Yeah.
like these guys, Coffee Stain Studios, who did Satisfactory, it's elegantly simple.
I think sometimes you can ruin a good idea by forcing it to be more complicated than it needs to be. And it's interesting to have this conversation at the same time as talking about Blueprints. But it says for pre-alpha, it was 16 to 18 people working on Satisfactory, which again, considering the success, that's fucking nothing. And then the team expanded to 20 to 30 by the sounds of things.
That feels about right, because it's not nothing. And it's really well tuned. I imagine their lengthy early access was instrumental in this.
A long time, right?
I think years.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. I by the time it was recommended to me and I jumped in, it had, by dumb luck, it was like 1 week earlier or something. It had hit 1.0, and I have no idea.
Man, I
what
didn't realize
was.
this game was so big. Like again, I knew it was good. I knew that I liked it. I knew that I liked watching people do cool stuff with it.
It says, according to Wikipedia's article on the best-selling PC games of all time, it is sitting at 5.5 PC, which puts it in like the top 20 of all time. for
Crazy,
PC.
man. The only other thing that I was going to say before you have to go, because I too have to go, was when we're talking about the satisfaction that players can get from solving a puzzle. I actually think that is one of the strengths of Expedition 33 in terms of its combat, in that, like, sure, all combat is sort of a puzzle in some way or another when you're playing a game. Expedition 33's combat is so unique to me in that I find it easier to play if I am paying slightly less attention, in that if I am, like, the way I kept doing it when I was streaming it was like, it's more about vibes than it is about, because if you're looking and watching, to try to do your parries or your dodges, I was fucking it up. If I am like,
Interesting.
if I let some kind of calm wash over me, where I just sort of feel out the sound, I'm much more successful. And the only other game that I have played like that is Sekiro, where it's like a whole other combat language where combat becomes a very challenging rhythm game. And it is almost easier to do if you like let your eyes glaze over and you just like listen to things. And I think that makes each combat encounter so satisfying in that game because they all have different timings. So every single time you're getting this brand new puzzle. It doesn't tell you exactly what that timing is going to be. You kind of have to make the mistake and choose to do the dodges, so you figure out how they're going to time things, and then you would figure out when to parry and like to have the most successful run if you're going with the parry build, which you don't have to do in Expedition 33, which is also really cool. But it's the same kind of thing. It's like, play around with this, see how it feels, see what you are gonna do with this when you actually have to take it seriously. You can have a couple of runs you can throw away, it doesn't really matter. And so I'm getting like these 2 games that I'm playing right now, again furiously trying to get through anything before hopefully finishing Doom before I disappear to the UK next week. It's the same level of satisfaction, just that one of them has combat and the other one's just a bunch of random cards that have rooms on them, and I'm just fucking loving it. Like, I feel like it's been a really great 12 months for video games so far. Like, there's so much good stuff this year already, and I didn't even touch Monster Hunter. It's been wonderful.
And setting all of that aside, I will not record another episode until you watch Andor. I'm boycotting.
Boycotting Play Watch Listen.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta dip into the watch, because
all right,
Andor is the greatest. Like, I'm fully on board with the tweets that say the best Star Wars trilogy is Andor season 1 and then 2 and then Rogue One. That's the best Star Wars trilogy now. Like, for me, Andor. I'm gonna stop myself.
All right,
I'm
this
just
episode
saying,
goes up next Friday. We're recording a week early, like I said, so I have.
It just ended
several
this week
weeks.
as of when we're recording. Yes.
All
So
right.
you have a couple. Well, you have as long as you need. I'll be here ready and waiting whenever you want to resume the show.
The show's canceled until I finish Andor. I love that.
100%.
All right, it's competing with Blueprints, so we'll see how it goes. But Raul has also been meaning to, so I might. Do you recommend rewatching season 1, or do I not need to do that?
I did, and because I also think season 1 is also just such a masterpiece that it's a delightful rewatch, and you see a million things. Like, this show has threads that are paying off way later. It's worth rewatching, but they also recap at the start of the episodes what matters. Like, if you're really pressed for time because Blueprints is just so consuming, and occasional work, then you can rely on that with confidence. Like, it's such masterpiece filmmaking unto itself. You can appreciate it on that level, if nothing else. You don't. What's so great, Tony Gilroy's made it very clear. You don't even have to be into Star Wars. That he wanted to make a show for people who aren't into Star Wars. And what I love is it rewards you if you are, but you really, truly don't need to be.
It's not fan service.
Just as oh my God, it's anti that. It's so anti that in the best. Oh my God, I love it. That will be our next.
I'll do it.
That is our future Play Watch Listen. This is the one time we've ever had on next week.
Next week's episode. Exactly. Let's just not talk about it.
I refuse.
All right. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm loving, and we will see you for an Andor episode or nothing.
Or this was it. This is the end.
Oh, this is literally the end of
Roll credits.
Hopefully in about 2 weeks. Bye.